Beowulf Tool Kit. Reading Beowulf is like trying to drink from a fire hose.
Okay, you ready? Yeah! Open wide!
Beowulf was written over a millennia ago, and thus it's a little harder to understand. However, it is a really short book compared to most things you will read. It is less than a third of the size of George Orwell's 1984, and less than a half the size of The Great Gatsby. That being said, it will be important to take lots of notes. While that may seem like a waste of time, it will make remembering and understanding a lot easier. And while it's more work in the short term, it will be less work overall. Otherwise, you will have to keep flipping back and searching for lines. And don't worry, if you are here trying to understand, then you will do it. And we are glad to be able to help you along the way. Tool number 1. Create a page of character notes. Each time a character's name is mentioned, write about the character. Say everything you know about them and everything that they've done. When this page gets filled up, write up another page and keep going till the end of the story. It will make things go way faster in the long run, believe me. Tool number 2. Write a summary of chapter events after you read each chapter. Keep these on a separate page from your character notes. I know it's extra work, but you'll thank me later. Tools 1 and 2 are the tools of all tools. If you make notes on each character and write summaries of each chapter, you will be able to finish Beowulf in a day. But if you don't, you will read it 6 more times and still not understand. Please remember, make notes on characters and summaries on chapters, and the book won't be so bad. Tool number 3. Don't be a tool. Don't be a tool that tells everyone you read Beowulf in Old English. This is a sentence in Old English. Wees grimme geest gendel hatten, meide mirstapa. You are reading a translated version made by a nerd living in your university library. But if you're having a little trouble understanding, don't worry. That's because Beowulf does use a lot of Old English words, and it's a poem. Poems, old or new, aren't very easy to understand. There are still some Old English phrases and words left in the poem. Here's some examples. Eichheit, Velken, Strand, Fetters, Leaf, Fatherland, Middle Earth. If you speak another West Germanic language like German, Fries, Dutch, or Afrikaans, you may be able to understand these words. Tool number 4. Kennings. Kennings really aren't that hard. It's just when we avoid saying a word and we use at least 2 other words in its place. We do this all the time nowadays. Sometimes we might use a kenning to lighten the weight of a word. Maybe if we want to call someone lazy but make it a little less offensive, we might say couch potato. Other times, kennings provide a physical image to a word. Instead of saying that someone is neutral, we might call them a fence sitter. Sometimes, kennings can be made to keep innuendos secret from children. I'm not going to give you an example of that one. There are all kinds of reasons to make kennings, but usually in Beowulf, kennings are used to make more vivid verse and imagery. One of the best examples of a kenning is a word for blood. Blood was called sword drink. Just drink that analogy up. It's very potent, isn't it? And also a little salty. I suppose now is a good time to ask for donations. We accept A positive and negative. Oh, sorry, what? Oh, I guess we only take cash now. Never mind. Anyway, back to kennings. Another kenning used is battle sark. Sark is the Old English word for shirt. Now, knowing what sark means, what do you think that battle sark is, or battle shirt? That is correct. Battle sark means armor. The word berserk is believed to stem from barsark, or bear shirt. It is believed the word comes from berserkers, who wore bear, wolf, and boar skins in battle. In the Volsung saga, Sigmund and Sinfjotli wear wolf skins and transform into wolves. This gave them incredible strength, though it caused them to lose their minds and almost kill each other. Hence the word berserk is often used to describe people in a furious rage that can't think straight. Another important kenning is ringgiver, which is a way of saying lord, chieftain, or king. Rings were exchanged as a way to show faithfulness and obligation between parties, kind of like wedding rings do today. This concept is important in the Volsung saga and The Lord of the Rings. The author of Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien, used kennings in his books. Some examples are ring bearer or barrel rider. Tool number 6. Think flexibly. Things are going to be phrased in ways that you won't talk nowadays. It is really important to remember that Beowulf is a poem. Sometimes poems will cut words to maintain the syllable count, or change word order to maintain a certain meter. Beowulf does this at times as well, and with all the old words and the Germanic names, it gets really hard to keep up after a while. When you come to a part that you don't understand, stop and figure out who's talking. Ask yourself, who's speaking right now? And where are they located? If this still doesn't help you understand, pretend that the person talking doesn't speak English very well. They're trying to communicate the best they can, without knowing the language properly. Keep in mind that they may not be following proper grammatical rules. Beowulf was written in a different language. Translations are never perfect, especially when you're trying to preserve a poem. One word I saw that may be a little confusing is off-carried, which is just carried off. Words like this may be confusing for a native English speaker, but if you think flexibly and you're thinking about talking to someone who's just learning English, you'd probably understand them. Like if I said, I had my sword off-carried, you'd go, oh, he's trying to say it's carried off. I think off-carried as well is also a function of Old English grammar. I'm not 100% sure on this, but we do see this in a lot of other Western Germanic languages with separable verbs. The grammar function is still done in German, Dutch, and Frisian. Here's actually all of the examples of off-carried in each of those languages. Wegbringen, afhalen, ofheltje. Tool number 6. Remember these names. Beowulf has tons of hard names to remember, but if you think about it, in 1,000 years, some of our modern names will be weird. If you're following tool number 1 and taking notes for each character, this will be a lot easier to remember. I promise. But to reward you for listening this far, or for being smart enough to skip ahead, I'm going to give a summary of Beowulf's most important characters, and write them down. If you fail to write it once, you'll have to read it at least 6 times before you can remember. Here's a link as well to a public Google Doc where you can Control F a name to find it a lot easier. This information was not made by me, it was made by Leslie Hall, a nerd that used to live in libraries and translated the version of Beowulf that I read. I hope this list will help you as well. Here are some important characters to remember. Now pause the video and get ready to take some notes. Hrothgar. Hrothgar wanted to take care of his people, so he built Heorot, a mead hall. Remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs. First give your people shelter, then ale, then mead, and then beer. And then they can be happy. Now that I think of it, gold might be in there too somewhere. Anyway, Hrothgar made his people drunk and merry, or just maybe a little too drunk to know that they weren't happy. Anyway, they were living peacefully, until Grendel came and ruined the fun. Hrothgar was very sad to see his people suffer, but he was unable to defeat the beast Grendel on his own. Beowulf. Beowulf is a Geat, or a Goth, meaning he was from Sweden. Beowulf is also PewDiePie's great-great-great-grandfather's mailman's brother's friend, practically a father to him. Back in Beowulf's time, Geats didn't play Minecraft. Instead, they tore monsters' arms out of their sockets. Or at least Beowulf did that to Grendel. Beowulf also killed Grendel's mom. And a dragon. Beowulf, like Lance Armstrong, had the strength of 30 men. Only Beowulf didn't use steroids. But Beowulf wasn't just a beefcake. He was also an ideal king who always tried to do his duty. That's right, ladies. Beowulf was compassionate, handsome, rich, and a king. He is Sweden's most eligible bachelor. One of Beowulf's best examples of moral character was when he went to help Hrothgar kill Grendel. Beowulf did this without asking for any return favors. The only thing Beowulf wanted was to honor his deceased father who owed Hrothgar a favor. As Beowulf grew older, he might have grown a little weaker physically, but his character got stronger. After a dragon started terrorizing his kingdom, the aged Beowulf went to stop it, only after putting in his dentures, and stopping for some prune juice along the way. He brought several of his troops with him. All of them except Wiglaf ran away. Regardless, Beowulf did his duty and didn't fear, and he was poisoned by the dragon, dying moments later. Hygelac. Hygelac is Beowulf's uncle and mentor. While Beowulf's father is dead, Hygelac tries to treat Beowulf as a son, reflecting his loyalty and his diligence in fulfilling a family obligation. These good attributes rubbed off on Beowulf. Healfdene. Healfdene literally means half-Dane. Halfdene is Hrothgar's father, and he was a mighty king. Hrothgar had some very big shoes to fill. We don't know a whole lot about Healfdene besides the fact he was a good leader, and also the father of Hrothgar. We do know the name of his father as well. His father was named Beowulf. Not the same Beowulf as the one in the story, but I do wonder if there is a possible family relation. I mean, after all, his name is half-Dane, implying that he is half of something else. Maybe Swedish? After all, how many Beowulfs do you know? I only know 8. Unless you don't count my goldfish. Then it would only be 7. But maybe Beowulf was a much more common name back then. You know, back before the geeks started playing Minecraft. Grendel. Grendel is a monster that appears much like a man but acts like a beast. Similar to how a wolf looks like a dog but acts savagely. Grendel disturbed Hrothgar's kingdom and peace. He is an embodiment of chaos, rich with Christian and Germanic pagan symbols. If you would like to learn more about Grendel's religious meanings, watch my video, Is Beowulf a Christian or a Germanic pagan story? Grendel's mom. Grendel's mom is even more savage than Grendel. She rarely interacted with humans and lived deep underwater. She didn't attack the humans until Beowulf's later son, who is a very handsome, smart, and good boy. Just a little misunderstood. And he also ate people. Maybe that was all he ate, which is very bad, because remember kids, eat your vegetables too. Wiglaf. Wiglaf, whose name literally means the last warrior, Wig, war, Lof, last, was the only soldier that didn't cower and abandon Beowulf in the dragon fight. Wiglaf is also the son of Wistan. Wistan isn't mentioned in person. He's really an adjective used to describe Wiglaf, though it is said that Wistan is a Wegmunding. This is also said about Beowulf's father Ekethu, meaning that Beowulf and Wiglaf might be related. The dragon. The dragon seems to be the most powerful of the 3 monsters, as it was the only one that could finally kill Beowulf. However, it is important to note that in a sense, Beowulf didn't lose as he was true to his people and died an honorable death, whereas his men, who did live, will now live dishonorable lives, which was much worse in the Germanic culture. The dragon has some parallels to Germanic mythology. If you are interested in learning more about these, check out my other video on dragons. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you are watching it for fun, you're a nerd like me, and you might enjoy my videos to the left. And if it's 3 a.m. and you're cramming for school, you may want to watch my video on the right. But let's be honest, if you're doing either of those things, you're a nerd. Well, at least you're not the nerd making these videos. And whatever you do, don't subscribe. That way, it's harder for you to find my videos next time you need my help.